Welcome to Forbidden Planet 42, celebrating 42 glorious years of Forbidden Planet in London and 42 years of trying to answer the ultimate question to life, the universe, and everything. I'm here with a man who needs no introduction, the creator of the Umbrella Academy, the curator of the DC Young Animal imprint, the writer of Doom Patrol, the writer of Cave Carson, the creator of Penny Parker, Mr. Gerard Way. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No problem. No problem.
How are you today?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, mate. It is our pleasure. So when did you first become aware of Forbidden Planet, Gerard?
A long time ago, actually, way before I got to visit Forbidden Planet. I used to see the ads all the time in magazines and comics and stuff. And it always sounded like this super exciting place. And we have one in New York, but I hadn't gotten to go to the one in the UK, which was like, that's the first one, right?
That's right. That's like, yeah. And the original Ground Zero is the London store, which used to be 2 stores. So don't remember seeing it, but when we first opened, we had a whole bunch of like ads that were created by Brian Bolland.
Yes, I know about those. Yeah.
And in fact, actually, Brian sent me the original artwork for all of those ads the other day. When we're done on this call, I'll send them over to you because he's still got all the artwork at home. They look fantastic.
That's amazing.
And we had 2 stores. One was comics and one was movies and music. And ultimately, we jammed them both together to the location where they are now.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I knew about Forbidden Planet for a long time. I was always a big fan of simply like the graphic design, the logo, the Brian Bolland illustrations. It just sounded like this really exciting place. So I'd always been aware of it. Yeah, for a long time.
Well, it's funny, a true story. So the logo is designed by a guy called Ryan Hughes. And Ryan Hughes is the guy he creates most of the DC and Marvel logos. Right. He was also the artist on Grant Morrison's Dan Durr back in the day. So if you ever saw Grant Morrison's Dan Durr update, he was the artist on that. And some of those sensibilities are in the logo.
Right. Yeah,
so,
it's a great logo.
So can you remember your first signing at Forbidden Planet, how it came about and when it was?
Oh, yeah. I'm really bad with years, but I definitely remember. I remember the experience was really incredible. Like I remember somebody telling me like there's like people wrapped around the block, like into the alley, and it was just so exciting. And it was for Umbrella Academy, right? That I was signing for. Yeah. So that had been out, which was good. And we had gotten back on tour, and it just was such an amazing experience. It was like an honor to be there. And I think I remember coming in and somebody had a signing before me, right as I was showing up. I can't remember.
Yeah, you had I can't remember who it was with, but there was a previous session. That's correct.
Right. And there was somebody else signing, and then it just was just amazing. I always really liked meeting the fans of my work, and they're all very sweet and artistic and talented and funny, and so that was really great. And it was an amazing experience.
Fantastic. And growing up as you did in New Jersey, right? What was your entry point into comic books?
Oh my God! So when I was in the 3rd grade, now I had seen some like Archies and stuff before at a family friend's house. He'd given us a couple Archies and things like that. But it wasn't until I was in the 3rd grade and I had to get my tonsils taken out because I had like tonsil issues. I had a lot of earache issues. I would get earaches all the time. Anyway, so I had to go into the hospital and they had to perform surgery. And I was in the hospital for about 2 days. And my grandmother came to visit me and she brought me a super pickle, which is right up there.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant.
And this is like the 3rd or 4th time I've been on a Zoom or something where I've had to explain Super Pickle to people. I think people that have followed my interviews are probably getting sick of hearing about Super Pickle. But the question comes up a lot of how I get into comics, and the answer is she gave me a Super Pickle, and she gave me a 3-pack of Marvel comics. And the one I remember was a Captain America issue, and there was a couple others, but it was right then that I started going to. We had like a mom and pop, like a corner shop not a comic shop, but a corner shop, like a newsstand shop, like a couple blocks away from my house. So me and my brother would walk there. This is back when your parents could let you just walk by yourself to
a
corner store. And they had a wall of comics. So the very first thing I gravitated toward, became interested in, was X-Men.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the Chris Claremont, Mark Silvestri run of X-Men.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, that is right there, right in the center of all the classic operatic universe X-Men stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So that was kind of my way in. And then, so I was a big Marvel fan. I was a big X-Men fan. And then right around middle school, I met somebody I had played snare drum in marching band, but I quit marching band really early. It wasn't for me, But before I quit, there was a trombone player named Russell, and he was like, "What do you read? I heard you read comics. What do you read?" And I was like, "I read X-Men. I read, stuff like that." And he said, "You have to read Watchmen." And I had never heard of it. And I was like, "What's Watchmen?" And he was like, "Oh, you just got to read it." So then I read Watchmen, and that was pretty life-changing. And then I read Dark Knight Returns. And it was around this time, I'm about 15, there was a comic shop in Bloomfield Center that was quite a long walk from my house. But I would walk there every day. And then over time, I befriended everybody that worked there and the owner. And then I started working there. But it was like this amazing place that really helped form kind of my interests and who I would become, and in some ways. And, it was just an amazing experience. It was called Metropolis Comics, and it was very small. It was a one-room shop, very small, but it was like my home,
Yeah, I know that. I know that feeling exactly. Now, when you jump forward quite a few years, could you talk a little bit about the genesis of Umbrella Academy? And
sure,
and how that came about.
Yeah, the genesis of that. Well, the biggest motivator, inspiration, was DC had just started reprinting Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol. So I can't remember what year this was, but they just started. They had brand new Brian Bolland covers. They just started coming out. And I had read Doom Patrol, not the entire run, when I was working at the comic shop, because they were coming out at the time, So it was my first exposure to group therapy. I had no idea what group therapy was before Doom Patrol. So then, so these trades are coming out. I'm on tour with the band. This is during our album Revenge, and I'm on tour. And I had this whole history in comics, like, that a lot of people didn't know about because they knew me from the band, So, but I had written a comic at 15, got published. Then I went to School of Visual Arts in New York for art, for cartooning. It was actually my major, like comic books. And then I interned at DC for about a year and a half. And then I hit the pavement, and then I was a toy designer. And then this little project, this band, took off. So I had to step away from drawing and anything creative like that. I put my creativity into the band, Anyway, so I missed drawing. I missed writing. I missed creating characters. So we were on tour during Revenge, and I just started, I was in Japan. We did a show, and then a fan at this signing, we did a signing in Japan. They brought me a set of Copic markers, and I never used them before. And they were fantastic, And then I just started designing these characters, and the biggest inspiration was Doom Patrol, even though Umbrella would end up being pretty different from Doom Patrol. And also it was inspired by really early Doom Patrol as well. And anyway, so I started just drawing these characters and developing them. And then I made a real pitch book, like a full pitch I did all the art, I did all the character designs, I wrote the whole thing, and then sent it to Dark Horse through Jim Kruger. And then Dark Horse really liked it, and that was it. And then they published it.
Fantastic. And how did it feel winning the Eisner Award?
Oh my God. That was crazy because, I had been nominated for a Grammy before, but as an art director, we never got nominated for music, But getting nominated for the Eisner and winning it was so much bigger to me than a Grammy. Like, that was like the biggest thing I could imagine. You know, it was so important to me because it was my first, you know, it was my first love in life. It was my first thing, comics. You know? So it was completely surreal and amazing, and you know, and I still have it, and it was just great. It was such a great feeling, you know.
I mean, it was an amazing and well-deserved honor, and you've answered that question how I thought you were going to, because it must be so great to harbour that ground zero love of a particular form, to enter it and then to knock it out of the park almost straight away and have that level of recognition. Just must have felt incredible.
It did feel super incredible. And, you know, going into Umbrella Academy, like there's a long history of like kind of vanity projects and kind of people coming from like musicians or celebrities coming in and doing comics, but I don't know if they're fully writing them. It's hard to tell what the deal is, but I made it a point that I was going to write full scripts. I was going to put in the work. I really was going to do it the real hard way. But at the beginning, there was like very skeptical people in the press because I was coming from this band that was really big, and nobody knew my history in comics. So I think people were very skeptical of it. They were assuming it wasn't going to be very good, and then it came out, and then people loved it, and they realized, oh, it is, you know, very good, or at least they felt that way. But we had to get over that initial hump of like, you know, being a musician.
Yeah, I get that, and that makes complete sense. And so then you do another great Dark Horse book, the True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys,
right?
And then how did you get into writing for Edge of Spider-Verse and creating Penny Parker?
You know, Nick Lowe, who was the editor of Spider-Man, at the time we met, he was the editor of X-Men, and he was just a big fan of Umbrella, you know? And so we met at a New York Comic-Con. We met at the hotel. We just kind of talked, you know? And he was just a big fan. He was like, you ever want to write X-Men thing, you know, we'll put it out. And I'd said to him, like, well, I do Umbrella Academy, and that's kind of like, you know, an examination of X-Men, and I'm kind of already doing that. So what would I do with the X-Men, you know? But then years later, he called me up because he's like, we have this new project and we're asking people to create brand new spider characters. And then I was really inspired with the design that I had done. I had initially done the first design of Spider. I was inspired by Paul Pope's THB. So I thought to myself, like, let's get this large kind of figure, this robot figure, and then this kind of teenage girl, kind of pair them together, except with Spider, she pilots the machine, you know. But it was just really fun, and it was inspiring. And then Jake Wyatt came on, and he injected some more anime into it. I think he's very inspired by manga and anime. So he put his spin on the design, and that's how we ended up with what Spider looks like.
I mean, it looks so incredible, and I imagine that it must have been an amazing experience to create Penny Parker and to create Spider like that, and then to have her become part of Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
what did that feel like?
That was crazy, you know. And Nick Lowe called me when they were working on it. He was like, "Hey, this is like top secret, and you can't really tell anybody about this, but we're doing this animated movie, and we want to use Penny." And it was really considerate of him. He called me and said, well, are you okay with that? What do you think of that? And I said, yeah, do whatever you want, you know. And he's like, do you want to give notes? Do you want to be involved? And I was like, no, I trust whoever you have, like, just go for it, you know. And it was cool. And then I saw the end result, and that's a really incredible film.
It's an amazing film, and one of the great superhero movies of all time, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
And won an Oscar, you know, such a beautiful outcome for that character, I think. And then you flip around and almost go full circle, really, with your love of Doom Patrol, and you know, you set up your DC imprint. How did that come about?
You know, I had met Shelley Bond a long time ago. Actually, I met her when I was an intern. I used to bring her photocopied because that's what they would do back in the day. So I was in the FedEx room, as they called it. There was a big photocopier, and I would have to it would be my job to take the original art and photocopy all of it, and then put it together, staple it, and then bring them to the editors, you know. So I was a big fan of Preacher at the time, and that's the way I got to read Preacher, was by actually getting the art. And
Fantastic. I mean, that if you can do it, that's the way to read it. That must have been amazing.
It was, and it was. I learned a lot simply by looking at art. You know, that one time there was this really huge Charles Vest piece that came in from Starlight.
Man, he's so good.
Yeah, and it was the scene from, like, I guess the Fairy Market, you know, and it was crazy. And we had to figure out how to, like, take a picture of it and photocopy it.
That must have been fantastic. Charles Vest actually was the first comics guy I ever interviewed when he was doing his big Spider-Man hardcover.
Okay.
So which is a great piece of work, really atypical Spider-Man book. So I mean, I love your work on Doom Patrol. The thing I really want to ask you about is what drew you to Cave Carson? What's the
Okay, so I had met Shelley, and then over the years we kept talking about doing Doom Patrol. There was actually like one or two false starts where I almost said, okay, I'm gonna do Doom Patrol, and it was gonna be on Vertigo. And then some years passed, and I was like, I had decided I was going to take, this was after the solo tour, I decided I was going to take a little break from music and focus on writing. I wanted to just fully be a comic writer for like 3-4 years. Anyway, so I decided, all right, Doom Patrol, it's like a bucket list thing. I have to write it. I want to write it. And I reached out to Shelley. I was like, I think it's time. And then I met with Dan and Jim, who we had interacted in South America at a con, and we had a lot of dinners together. And I went into the office and I basically pitched them an imprint. And the reason for that was because the Doom Patrol story I wanted to tell and the style of the comic, it wasn't like anything DC was doing at the time with their mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
So I felt that Doom Patrol needed a home, you know?
Yeah.
Different from Vertigo.
Yeah.
And so I pitched them this, and then Dan gave me this encyclopedia of DC Universe, and I'm looking through it for really underused characters, and then I come across this really small entry of Cave Carson, and the only thing about him that says is special. The only thing of note is that he has a cybernetic eye. It doesn't explain it, And I was like, that's a title, just talking about his cybernetic eye.
Fantastic. And you got to work with Mike Laven-Hemming on that trip.
Yeah. It was great. Mm-hmm.
He's just so good. He is just so good. And how are you feeling about the Umbrella Academy success on Netflix? I mean, we're a couple of days away as we talk from season 2 happening. What's your level of involvement been, and what do you think of the show?
So the best way to kind of explain my involvement is to kind of go back to when it was at Universal Pictures and they wanted to make it a film. Now, I was very involved in that. Mark Bomback, who was the screenwriter of the original script for a film, came to my house in LA. We met, we talked, and he did an excellent job and wrote this script, but Universal just kind of didn't know what to make of it. They didn't know what to do with it. Over time, they weren't going to make it. So anyway, we got the rights back. And then Dark Horse had struck a deal with UCP, who are very cool people and very talented. And they asked me to come in for a meeting. And Dawn from UCP, she said to me, what is your goal with Umbrella Academy? What do you want out of a show or a movie? Well, at this time we were talking about a show. And I said, honestly, after my experience with trying to get it made as a film, my goal is to make really good comics, because I lost so much time dealing with Hollywood for that film. There was a 10-year span where I didn't write any comics.
Right. Okay. I've got it.
Yeah.
So that whole development hell process just chewed up too much for you.
It did. It they asked a lot of me. I gave a lot. It was frustrating. They didn't get it. There was just so many things, It was disappointing. And so I did write Killjoys, but I didn't write any Umbrella comics in that time.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So anyway, so then I said to Dawn, I want to make great comics. I want to reconnect with the comics. I want to make great comics, so that way you guys have really good material,
Yeah.
Now I would end up being more involved in that. So Jeremy Slater, who did the original pitch and pilot, we went and shopped it around places. Not many. It was there was just 2 meetings, and I was there in the meetings as kind of like a backup, to back Jeremy up as we pitched this thing. And that was cool. And then, so Jeremy was tied up with The Exorcist, and he ended up, so we sold the show to Netflix, and then Jeremy was tied up with The Exorcist, so he couldn't do it. So then Steve Blackman came on. And then, you know, and he was like, he's great. And he was very open, and he asked me, he's like, oh, you know, you are going to be a co-executive producer. So I would like your notes, like give me notes about the overall series. I wrote a document for the writers that gives them all the secrets and where it's heading. And then I would give notes on the script, you know?
Yeah.
So it just involved notes. I let, like, Steve Blackman had a vision, so I just let him follow that. And I didn't get in the way of that. You know, I just let him do his thing, because to me, like, nothing's ever going to change the comics.
Yes. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
No matter what comes out. And luckily we are in a best case scenario, like what the end result is really good, you know, and they did a really good job. But I was able to disconnect from it and not take things personally when they changed, you know.
Yeah.
I did get notes. Yeah.
I think that's a very healthy way to look at it. And, you know, your comics are the sun source of the whole thing, you know, so yeah, no, it's great. And finally, Gerard, is there anything that you're working on at the moment that you can share with us or give us a hint of, or
we have a new Killjoy series coming out in October. We have a Klaus series, You Look Like Death, that's coming out, I think, August or September. That's really exciting because it's a story I wrote it with Sean Simon, who did Killjoys with me. And I'd always wanted a seance series. I always wanted him to have his own, because I always felt that his 10 years before Apocalypse Suite were extremely interesting, you know? And I was inspired by Bret Easton Ellis's Less Than Zero. That was a big,
book.
So I wanted to tell this seedier, different story than what we're used to in Umbrella. So that's coming out. And then we have a new Killjoy series called National Anthem coming out in October. And the cool thing about that is that's the original concept that it was before it became a band thing. So before it became this dystopian rebels versus corporation, this dystopian future, it started as something very different, and it never left our heads, you know, over the years. So we just hit a point where I went to Sean and I was like, let's just tell the story. Let's start from zero and retell the Killjoys, you know? So that I'm very excited about. And then I'm working on a couple different things, which I kind of can't get into, but I'm always like kind of developing stuff. And there's one in particular I'm like really excited about that does involve comics. So we'll see what becomes of that. But
fantastic, mate.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, when the new Killjoys is released, if you can squeeze any time to come back and talk us through it, that would be great. Yeah. We'd love to talk to you again. That'd be fantastic.
Great. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm having so much fun talking to you. So yeah.
Yeah. So mate, thank you very much for emptying out the time to have this conversation, and if you can come back and join us, what we're using Forbidden Planet 42 to birth a whole kind of Forbidden Planet TV channel. So you've got any new books coming in, as you're publishing new stuff, we'd love to talk to you about it.
That's great.
And basically all I need to say now is you've been watching Forbidden Planet 42 with the most popular signing guest we've ever had, Mr. Gerard Way. Thank you very much, Gerard. That's fantastic. Thank you, mate.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining us. That's brilliant. I really appreciate you shaking out the time, man. That was great.
Yeah, that was super fun. Yeah, you're great to talk to.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you.